This video contains content sponsored by John Wilson Blades and MK Blades. Opinions discussed in this video do not reflect the views of John Wilson or MK.
Well, hello and welcome to TSL Olympian 360. I am Dave Leese, and today I am thrilled to welcome three-time Olympian, CTV commentator, and 2004 Olympic floor exercise champion Kyle Shewfelt. Kyle, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
I have to say, as someone who has been talking to a couple people that you were going to come on, guys, girls, they're all obsessed with you and your gymnastics, and people really love your commentary.
Well, that's good. I love doing commentary, and I'm happy that people like my gymnastics. I tried to be artistic.
Always a plus. Now, I want to get into your career, but there was a little bit of a meet that went on in the States, and I thought that you would be an interesting person to talk about this because you're a commentator, and I've actually listened to interviews with you where you gave some kind of strong opinions for a Canadian and a gymnast, so I wanted your take because you don't have the same ties. When we hear stuff on American TV, Tim Daggett has known everyone for years. Nastia's dad owns a gym. He's very involved, so there's a lot at play. So I'm interested to know, but obviously one of the big stories this weekend was that Gabby Douglas made the Olympic team. And Marta Gurley said that she earned that fifth spot, that it was between her and Ashton Locklear. Now, Gabby didn't do well at nationals or trials, and she said that she was lacking passion there. So as a three-time Olympian, is that a concern to you that someone's lacking passion at the Olympic trials?
It is slightly concerning, yes, but I can totally see where Gabby's coming from because last time heading into 2012, she was a total underdog. She just came in at the American Cup. Everyone was like, oh my God, who is this Gabby Douglas girl? There was no expectation on her shoulders. She really had nothing to lose. And now she has everything to lose. I mean, she has the TV show with her family. She's their money train. She has so many endorsements. She's a big name. She just got a Barbie doll. I mean, Gabby Douglas is a huge brand. And I think she's come to the realization that that is true heading into this Olympic Games. You know, so she does have a lot more to lose. And I think sometimes that can make you focus on that rather than everything you can gain in terms of like how powerful, how amazing you can be in the competition. You're a little worried about making a mistake because you think of how many people you're going to let down.
Well, this weekend started with Marta telling the press that she was unhappy that Gabby wasn't going to do her Aminar. Now, that's named after you in the men's code of points. And we saw one clip of her training it in Rio where she kind of wiped out on it. And the rest of the American girls were all doing them. On her vault, it sometimes looks like her arms are twisted on the horse. I wanted you to kind of explain her block. Do you think she can actually do the Aminar if she wanted to in Rio?
I don't think she is gonna do the Aminar in Rio. I think that's an expectation that we should all let go. She doesn't need to do the Aminar. If she wants to beat Simone or have a chance to, then she needs to do the Aminar. But the reality is Simone is so far ahead of everyone. And I think for Gabby, it's not just about the block. I think it's if you look at the beginning, the run, it's not as fast and as powerful and as aggressive as some of the other athletes. She seems to be a bit tentative, and I know people were saying she did a stutter step as she headed into her vault on the second day at U.S. Olympic trials. But I think even if you watch her tumble on floor when she goes into her final or into all of her passes, it's almost like she's not taking her full powerful stride. It's a little bit stutter steppy. So no, I don't think she has the Aminar right now. There's a report that came out where her mother said she injured her knee. She fractured her knee or something. But
a year ago. Like, what does that have to do with now, honey? I just was not sure.
Because I think Gabby's mom likes to just like make everything into a big deal and sensationalize it. I think we've all come to see that she's a bit of a pageant mom. But I think when it comes down to it, Gabby doesn't need to do the Aminar. It's not going to be safe. It's not going to be healthy. It's going to end up being an injury that she doesn't need. Aly Raisman can do it because she's so darn strong. It's messy when Aly Raisman does it. I don't like it, but she gets it done. But I think Gabby can score just as well on a clean double twist, and she's going to have a lot less stress. And I don't see her doing it in Rio. A month is too short of time, and she hasn't competed it this year. I know that Marta really likes the athletes to compete things so that it's consistent and so that it's something that they feel confident in. she's not going to throw her up there and say, "Okay, Gabby, you haven't done it in a competition yet, but let's try it." It's not worth it for the American team. They're going to win by 5 points anyways.
What do you think causes the twisting on the horse? Are they kind of rushing it because they're afraid of the vault, or what? Okay.
Yeah, I think Simone's the only one, and Michaela Maroney did it as well, where they actually get that block and that pop off. They establish the height, then they get into the twist. But the rest of them, they just, as soon as they touch the horse, they start twisting right away. And I think it's just they want to get the twist done. And when you do twist, your rotation speeds up a bit, so they don't have the same power and the same height. So they have to really go on just wrapping it in and winging it.
Well, Marta had a couple interesting quotes. She's been pretty open that Gabby is not the most disciplined in training, which is not something that she likes, and
Right.
she wasn't thrilled when she left Liang Chao. And after trials, she gave a quote that said that she feels like if we put Gabby in regimented training with daily planning and daily assignments, we will see improvement just like we did last year. We have 9 days of training camp, which is long, and we really put importance on this training camp. So what is she not doing on those other days? She has coaches. What does Marta not think that she is doing? Something seems to be a little bit of a disconnect that the reigning Olympic champion, she's implying, doesn't have daily training assignments.
Yeah. Well, I think that Gabby has a lot of distractions in her life. I think that all of her endorsements, all of the expectation, her family, there's a lot of pressure. And at the end of the day, that is a distraction. So when you are in the training camps, you don't have that capacity to have other people come into your little bubble, and you can really focus on becoming like that warrior version of yourself. Gabby Douglas has the potential. We know that. She's shown it. When she does gymnastics, it is beautiful. Her split leaps are past 180. She's very powerful. She does have a great skill base, and she's a competitor, and she's shown it. At the 2012 Olympic Games, she showed that she could hit 3 beam routines in a row in team finals, in all around, right? Like she was very mentally strong. So I think on a day-to-day basis, when she's surrounded by the other girls and they're pushing her, and when she has the national staff, you rise to a new level. And I think that's why the American program has been strong. I think back to my career, I was always better in training camps because we had our national coach there and he was watching. And sometimes you can let yourself down a bit in training. And I know the American women, they have a really great group of self-disciplined young ladies who do work incredibly hard in the gym day in and day out. But some people need the extra push. They need that fire under their butt, and they need to be in that situation where it really does matter, it really does count, and that's where they rise. I know that Bella and Marta Karolyi have always looked for the athletes like Kimbo, right? Like Kim Smeskal, that girl, when pressure was on, she was better. And that's what I think they're banking on for the Olympic Games.
Well, they also didn't need those athletes. You know, Kimbo, if she wasn't training up to their standards, was shown the door. Gabby's coaches haven't had someone at this level. You have the mom coming in with the endorsements and everything like that. Is it a situation where Chao was someone who could kind of control that and say, you know, my way or the highway? I mean, does she kind of need someone like that to get her back in gear?
I don't think she does. I think like Christian is although he hasn't taken an athlete to that level, Gabby can self-manage. I think she just needs all the other things that are around her to be taken out. She needs it simplified. She needs to think about gymnastics and gymnastics only. You know, I can even tell like her Barbie doll commercial came out, and that wasn't filmed too long ago from what I can see based on her shape and that kind of stuff, the way that she was at Buckeye at the time. And so what I'm trying to say is she just needs to cut out all the crap, and she needs to focus on gymnastics only. And I think that if she can do that, she's going to be able to get to a new level. And I wouldn't doubt her. You know, it's one of those things where, yeah, I did, as I'm sure many people did, a bit of an eye roll when she got named to the team, because at trials she wasn't great. But I think someone like Michaela Skinner was at her absolute peak at the trials, and good on her. She looked the best she's ever looked. But I think the reason she didn't make the team is because they need that bar score. And like Maggie Nichols had the knee injury. She is just getting back into shape. But Gabby, I think they looked at Gabby and they said, okay, she can contribute on all 4 of the events if we need her. And if we can get her into that situation where she's solely focused on gymnastics, Gabby's going to be able to rise to a new level. And she's done it at the Olympics in 2012, and she did it at the 2015 World Championships. She looked fantastic there.
Now, you know, there are a lot of probably bitter coaches that are retweeting things right now on social media, implying that that brand that you talked about also played into the fact. Do you think that at the end of the day that really does pay a decision? Okay.
Yes, absolutely. Steve Penny went in the room to make the decision.
He did stand for her for a double twisting Yurchenko with a hop. If you watch the thing, he like leaps out of his chair for a pretty average vault. But yeah.
And you know what, David? Like, let's address the elephant in the room here. Gabby Douglas is a brand. She is the only Olympic champion to return since Nadia Comaneci. That's been 36 years in the making. 76 and 80
this year. You know, they sell out the U.S. Classic and have screaming kids for Allie and Gabby, so it is important.
Exactly. You hear the chanting for Gabby. She's a huge brand, and to have an Olympic champion all around and to have a world all around champion, you can't beat that. That is a story you have to go with. You can't say, "Oh, I'm going to take Ashton Locklear, who's going to win a silver medal on bars at the Olympics," and Ashton does beautiful bars. But the reality is that silver medal is not going to be as valuable as Gabby Douglas being at those Olympic Games. As NBC's invested a ton of money into it, so has USA Gymnastics. They have the Kellogg's Tour happening. I don't blame them for making a business decision. That's a lot.
She has hit earlier this year.
Right? And Gabby has presence. I'm sorry, she does. She walks into a room and you think, Gabby Douglas. She's a star. She's a celebrity. She's known by everyone. And there's a lot of 4-year fans that are going to look at this Olympic Games and say, wow, I remember Gabby Douglas when she was so inexperienced and little in 2012, and now here she's back. And the narrative is going to be, I want it to be positive. As a commentator, I'm going to talk about what Gabby has to contribute. I'm going to try not to focus on the fact that there was other people at the trials that potentially could have earned a few more tenths for the team score. I think Gabby Douglas has a lot of pressure and expectation on her shoulders, and I want to see how she can rise in that occasion.
Well, I want to ask kind of your perspective as a competitor. We saw Gabby do so well earlier this year at the American Cup. She knew that she had to go against Maggie, and that was going to be close. But she knew that she could beat Maggie. And then she won at Jesselo, at the Jesselo Trophy again. Do you think it has dawned on her that she cannot beat Simone? Could that be playing into this too? With this, has the realization finally come that the Aminar's not coming back? These upgrades aren't coming. I'm not going to win, and you see kind of a different vibe from her out there.
Yeah, I think like Ali Raisman has said, you know, everyone else is competing for second place. When you come second, you actually win, because Simone is just heads above the rest. And Simone has such a high level of difficulty. She's got impeccable execution when she's on, and she has this great mental strength where she can, I think for Simone, she's been in a bit of a holding pattern where we saw the mistakes at trials, and at nationals she didn't look quite as crisp as she can be. But I think that's a good thing, because it's going to wake her up and it's going to make her hungry. And I think Simone is the type of athlete that needs to be hungry. It gets boring when you win all the time, right? So now she needs...
had her in a holding pattern since Worlds. I don't mean to cut you off, but I mean, she didn't do the American Cup. She didn't do Jesselo. They only had her do one day at Pac Rim. It looks like they're trying to keep her in that bubble that everyone wants her in, but yeah, it has to be a little bit strange for her.
It's got to be strange. And speaking from my experience, I never had the Simone expectation, but you're kind of like, oh my God, I just want it to be the real thing. I'm sick of all this mock meets. I'm sick of all these competitions that aren't the thing that I've been thinking about and talking about. I'm ready to go, and I'm ready to fight in that moment. But I think going back to the Gabby point, I think everybody knows they can't beat Simone. And I think the big thing that I'm looking for is, are they going to put Lori, Ali, and Simone up as the all-arounders, or are they going to put Gabby? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, that's okay.
Yes.
No, let's get into it, because I am very curious what you think about that, because you don't like Ali Raisman's vault. Well, many people don't like Ali Raisman's bars, and they kind of made this allotment for her last year. You said you expect Gabby to do well at the Olympics. Mm-hmm. I would think that Ali Raisman has earned the ability to do the all-around, and at the same time, when you look at those events, I kind of want to know if Lori's bar routine is going to score as well in Rio as it does in the U.S., because I think that there could be a question mark there.
Yeah. I think every score that the U.S. gives is about 0.3 lower internationally. Mm-hmm. 15.7 on beam, that's pretty high. But she'd be a 15.4 for sure. That beam routine that Lori did was incredible at the trials. Here's my thoughts on Ali Raisman. I think that she is a wonderful ambassador. You can see her true, genuine care and leadership. She's totally, I think she's got this full total package. But in terms of gymnastics, I think she's a powerhouse. I think her floor and her beam is incredible, but her bars is lacking. It isn't technically very sound, and I think there's a lot of leg separations. And I heard Marta talk about Koshin's vault, how it would be an embarrassment. Well,
I have that written in my question.
No offense to Ali, but her bars just it's a stock routine. It's nothing special, and in fact, it's not very pretty on the eyes. So if I was Marta Karolyi, I know Ali's earned it, but I think the two that would move forward to all-around finals are going to be Simone and Lori. If those two, if there's three to be competing, those will be the two. So then you have to play it out and say, well, who are we going to give a chance to? And I know that Ali's big motivation was coming back after not getting that bronze medal because of the tiebreaker in 2012. So she's going to be heartbroken, but I think Ali's a team player.
I think
it's going to come down
to handle that. I think she's mature enough to handle that and understand.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I think it's going to be Simone will be first and the second American is going to be second. So it's like there's kind of an Olympic silver medal on the line there. But I know Marta's going to put up three. She's going to put up three all-arounders because that's what they always do to keep it competitive internally. But if I was to make the call, I would probably put up Gabby. I would put her up. I would put her in the all-around just because of the narrative in the story. Like if you're going to do it, you may as well go the whole route.
Mm-hmm. Now, Marta did mention Madison KOSHIN's vault being an embarrassment. She did a full twist. Marta told her not to do the double twist and not to risk it. It seemed like Marta's been invested in the Madison KOSHIN train for a long time. Woga has a lot of power in the U.S. as well. There's a lot of talk about these other events that people have. Madison's other events really aren't that strong, though she does have them. Do you think Ashton Locklear had a really fair shake at making this team? Or did it really not matter how she did?
I had her in huge consideration until I started to sort of listen to all of the interviews and read that the team has already kind of been named. But I think Marta's a safety girl. She always has been. She's not going to take a risk on an athlete that can do two events. And I think that's why Madison was ahead. And I think we have to give Madison a lot of credit because this year she had a huge injury. Like a tibial fracture, that's a big injury to come back from. And her bars, if I'm to choose between Ashton and Madison, if they both hit, I'm picking Madison because it's more exciting. It's more risky to me. I like her back-to-back connections from high bar to low bar, back. I find Ashton's routine just to be very stock and to be, although it's very precise, I find I'm yawning during it. I want something that makes me go, oh my God, that's so cool. And I feel that Maddie always takes everything to the exact perfect position and to the maximum. And this like torque and snap that she has on her elements from the low bar to the high bar, that is world class. She just flies, and it makes me go, it makes me love gymnastics. And so that's why my heart goes towards her more than Ashton, where I'm kind of like, yeah, she does it, but it's kind of boring.
Does her foot form bother you, Madison's?
I don't know.
Feet aren't as pointed. Okay, they do. Like she has a little leg separation sometimes, low bar to high bar.
Low bar to high bar a little bit. See, I always have I have Ali Raisman's legs, the separations, and so I'm like, it just doesn't compare to that. I honestly am more focused on how she's flying than I am on those little. I don't even notice those subtleties. Thanks for pointing them out. Now I'll only notice them.
Well, now you're going to see them all the time. But she has hit at 2 world championships. You have to think that plays in.
Yeah. Do you know what I loved about Madison KOSHIN? Just to continue. On her full twisting double back, on her dismount, she would go and she'd look and she's like, "Urgh!" She's like attacking it, like she was fighting it. And Ashton to me was like, I'm doing my full twisting double back and I'm landing and I'm taking a step. So to me it was like Maddie wanted it. She was like going aggressively after it. And Ashton was a bit like, I'm hitting my routine and I hope I don't take a step, right?
And the coach heavily spots her on it in training, which is very strange.
Well, and his arm is always up and he's just, it's almost like she's not fully confident in that dismount. And to me, that says that,
language is there,
right? Yeah. Exactly. There's a bit of anxiety and stress that Madison doesn't show.
Well, you're a commentator. Last year at the World Championships, 4 girls tied for that uneven bar title, which is the judge's job not to do. So how legitimate can we consider that bar title? Is that just a wash? I mean, what is your take? That was joked.
Oh my God. I was like, my play-by-play, she's not a gymnastics fan. Her name's Brenda Irving, and she's like, what? 4 people? I'm like, yeah, that's not right. There was a clear, definitive winner, in my opinion. It was Victoria Komova. She had a style she was in her own league, if you really want to break it down. She hit perfect handstands. She had a real huge variety of unique skills. And so I think she should have won on that day. And I sure hope at the Olympic Games there's not a
Clear
tie for 4 people, because we're going to have to break the tie. And then I'm going to have to understand how to tell that in normal people language. I call it grandma language. I'm talking to the grandmas. I'm like, I can't describe how difficult it is as a broadcaster to be able to like try to decipher and make all of these, like translate all these crazy rules for the general public. They just don't get it, and I don't get it. What in your opinion, why did 4 people tie for the bar title?
If it's politics, if it's people not wanting to make the move, I don't know. It was very strange to me.
I think it's because the judges are too afraid to throw like a high score, because they want to be within range. They don't want to get the warnings. So, you know, they're giving a 9 to everybody on the routine. And maybe if it's really good, they give a 9-1, or if it's not as good, an 8-9. And then the difficulty values then equal out and everyone gets the same score.
Yeah. No, it's right? You don't see the differentiation. Sometimes Aly Raisman is getting the same score as someone who's very clean. Or Maggie Nichols at the World Championships last year was given very high scores, and she does double backs where her knees are together and the feet are apart. And I see it. Yeah, I don't know what that is. I've never seen that before. So, yeah, you see certain things. But talking about execution, you were one of the first people, kind of in an official capacity, that I ever heard really call out Michaela Skinner's vault. It seems like even before NBC did, at one point Tim Daggett sort of was harsh on Skinner. It seemed like she was in consideration. This weekend he went really soft on her. Do you think that she's someone who could be hammered by the judges internationally had they picked her?
Yeah, I think so. I think that I do have an appreciation for the difficulty level that she's done and for where she's come. I've looked back at videos of her from like 2011, 2012, and that girl has worked her tail off to improve, and I have to give her credit for that. But at the end of the day, the form is messy. She's very stiff in all of her movements. To me, it's not fluid. So she's a very great athlete, and she's very powerful and very acrobatic. But I think gymnastics is a combination of acrobatics and athleticism and artistry. And I just don't see her having that softness and that edge and that control. It's very tight and it's very like rigid.
She'd be a good aerial skier. She hits that position and could control that body, yeah.
Exactly.
I think new sport for her, 2022 or something. How do you think Aly's vault should be scored?
I think that I would give her like probably 8-4 executions. I mean, the knees, she's doing it's a stag position. Those knees are extremely bent, and she does get it around, but I think what the judges are doing is they're rewarding difficulty, and they're not really taking away the same deductions as they would. If someone did a double twist with that form, they wouldn't get anywhere near close the scores that they're getting, right? And believe me, I'm a huge Aly fan. As I said, like I think her leadership skills and her ability to hit under pressure are just incredible. But the reality is the 2.5 twist has leg form. That's like Mustafina on her triple full, or like Catalina Ponar. I mean, it's not pretty to look at, and it should be deducted. We have to enforce that.
I mean, you could be an Aly Raisman fan and put her on beam and floor. I think that's very fair. Would you go with the doubles for the team final with Gabby's and Lori's?
Yep.
Yeah,
I would. And the reason being is they're going to hit it, they're going to land, and the U.S., they don't need the Amanar score that's going to be 2/10 higher. They need the hit solid. And they're going to start on vault, so why not start with momentum?
It is kind of crazy to think that 4 years ago we had 3 Amanars in the final in the U.S., and there's not going to have that. Yeah. There's so much talk about Simone being the favorite for 5 golds. I think NBC mentions it every time they show her. Do you believe that is true, and will it be a letdown if she doesn't?
It's not going to be a letdown. I never try to place that expectation on an athlete that they're going to let us down.
You're on Canadian TV, though. I mean, you guys are more forgiving of your athletes. So,
yeah. I can't give any athlete trouble if they win 3 gold medals and not 5. I think Simone has a very legitimate. I mean, the U.S., you're going to take the title for the team, unless a disaster strikes, which, like, God willing, it won't. But team, Simone has a 99% chance. I would put money on the fact that she's going to win the all-around gold. I hope she can find the joy again. I find that she's being a little too serious and taking it too seriously, and I think Simone is at her best when she's having fun. So I think that Simone has a vault gold medal in her back pocket. She's got two of the strongest vaults in the world. Her Aminar is unmatched, it's unrivaled, and the Chang adding it new. If she can get the great block off the table, she's going to be in perfect position. Paseka and Hong Eunjung, I mean, they can do the two vaults, but they are not as good as Simone. So I think she's got that gold medal. And then I think for floor as well, her difficulty level is just so huge. I'd love to see her have a bit more like a bit more artistic style in her dance. I find sometimes she's just kind of going through the motions, and I want her to really feel that music. But I think balance beam is our question here. So I think she's got 4 gold medals. If she can hit, for sure, but balance beam, it's a little bit of a crapshoot. Someone else could come in and take that title. But I think I'm remembering the routine that she did from Pacific Rims this year, Pacific Rim Championships, and that to me was that was beautiful gymnastics. It was so difficult but looked so effortless, and her full twisting double back at the end is it's really an exclamation mark. The backspring layout that she does is just it's a walk in the park, and that is not an easy thing to do, but she makes it look so incredibly easy. So I think if she can get that front half under control and get her mind in the game. But I also think that balance beam is on the last day of competition, so her mind might be a bit tired at that point. So I would say it's not a given for balance beam, but 4 gold medals I think she's got in the bag.
4 in the bag. Now, you mentioned Simone's execution. You were known for that as well. And was that always the case? Did you have dance training? Was that something that your coach, emphasized? How did that come about?
Well, when we were little boys growing up in the gym, we did take ballet once a week. For like an hour, but it was very casual. It wasn't with like a crazy Russian ballerina. It was like with this awesome lady named Lydia, and she would joke with us that if we didn't point our toes, that we'd have to like do ballet in our underwear, so we'd all point our toes, right? But for me, it was just always, I fell in love with gymnastics in about 1991. I remember watching the American Cup, and after that, I became obsessed. I had my subscription to International Gymnast magazine, and every time gymnastics was on TV, I was watching it. And I really wanted to be like the Soviets. I wanted to have that style and that flair, and I'd borrow old videotapes from my coach of like the Bilazurchevs, the Artemovs, right, the Liukins, like back in the 80s when these Russian stars were just so incredibly stylish. And so I really tried to implement that into my routines, and Alexei Nemov was my big idol, and so I watched him over and over. And in fact, we had this one female coach at our gym where before the 2000 Olympics, I said, I need to do my floor routine a lot like this. And so I showed her the tape, and her and I worked together on working on the way my arm would be, the way my head would be, the way my chin would be, the way my fingers would point, the way I'd step, and the way my arm would sweep as I stepped to the corner. So it didn't come naturally to me, but it was something that I feel I worked really, really hard towards, and something that I knew I needed to have that certain style to stand out.
How much did that help your scores when you started doing that?
Tons. I remember at my first World Cup, it was in the year 2000, I was 17 years old, and I got sent on the World Cup circuit to try to earn the second spot for Canada. And at that Worlds, I thought I needed a double layout dismount, so I did that, and I hadn't been training it. I was training full in. But what the German papers wrote about was my jump full turn to prone fall. Just something subtle and something beautiful that really helped me stand out. And so, that I started to recognize very quickly that was the thing that was going to help me establish my reputation, and so it became more and more important. And I think it did help my scores. People knew when I stepped onto the floor that it was going to be a performance. It wasn't just going to be a marathon routine. It was going to be something with substance and style.
What were your goals for your first Olympic Games?
I had a goal. I wanted to make the finals. I wanted to make floor finals. I had done it at so many of the World Cups leading up. I had beaten Alexei Nemov. I had beaten Igor Virov. I had beaten all these guys that were in the Olympic final there. So, that was my goal going in, and I just wanted to be a sponge. I wanted to absorb as much as I could. I didn't find out till about a month and a half before the games that I was going to be going, and so it was. I was really trying to absorb the Olympic experience, and.
You talk about being a sponge. So what do you remember, I guess, the internal feelings of when you were competing at your first Olympics? What was the freak out? I guess, talk us through that.
So I had a great teammate. His name was Alexander Jelkov, and he really instilled in me like this belief that I belonged there and that I could do it. And Alex, I called him Sasha, but he spoke Russian, so he like was friends with all this, you know, the Russians, the Ukrainians, and everyone. So he kind of introduced me, and he got me into the club. So I kind of knew everyone, and I could go in and have a great friendly rapport with everyone. So I felt like I belonged. But you know, when there's the Olympic rings on that vault, and when there's the Olympic rings on the mats, it does really have that film strip in your mind of being a child and imagining that. So I got a little overwhelmed, and I remember competing on floor and thinking, I can't feel my legs. It was like that song, I can't feel my face when I'm with you, but I couldn't feel my legs. I literally couldn't. I was like, oh shoot, I have to compete, and I can't feel my legs. But then as soon as I saluted, I tried to take a deep breath, and I stepped onto the floor, and I just didn't know how to manage the adrenaline. I didn't know how to control myself in those big situations.
You really need to lie about that floor, because that was the floor that everyone complained about in the U.S., that they hated that was a hard floor, whatever.
It was bad, man. It was hard. You had to work really, really hard. And I went out of bounds on my first pass. I did whip 1.5 front full to a front 1.5, and then I did a rebound to my stomach, and I gave everything a little more oomph, and then I rebounded and I went out of bounds. So yeah, people were either falling on their ass or they were going out of bounds, falling forward because they were trying too hard.
How long did it take you to get back into gear after those Olympics? You know, you have the whole experience. You come back home. You're still young. Did you go right back into training? Did you take time off? I guess what was...
Yeah, I went right back into training. So I took 2 weeks off at the Olympics. So I was done after the first day. I was 12th. So I didn't move forward to the floor finals. And so I watched all of the gymnastics, and I went to a bunch of other events, and I partied, and I met people, and I just had a great time. I really just lived up the Olympic experience. And it was lonely because I was there by myself mostly. Sasha was there, but he left because he didn't make finals either, and he was pretty disappointed, so he went back to Canada. So I was kind of hanging out at the Olympics with myself, and I was friends with all the British team, and with the Australians, and with the Canadian girls team, and the divers and stuff. So I made a lot of friends, but I was motivated. I was so motivated. I mean, being there and watching and seeing Igor win the gold medal, I was like, oh my God, I've beaten him. Like, maybe I can do this too. So I came back into Canada, and I worked my butt off to try to get really, really good. And I went to the World Cup finals that year in December, and I came second. And then after that, that's when I burnt out because I had competed basically for 16 months straight. I was a tired little guy.
How long did you burn out for, would you say?
I was burnt out for about... I continued to push for 4 more months, and then it hit me, and I was like, I cannot go to World Championships this year. Like, I'm going to get hurt. I don't want to be in the gym. I want to learn new skills. I don't want to do routines. And so my coach really supported me. I got in huge trouble from the Canadian Federation because they wanted me to be a part of that World's team. So I was supposed to go to Goodwill Games. That got taken away after I made the decision not to go. And by about December, I was back in competition form. I took some time away. I went to California. Chris and Cindy Waller are 2 very close friends of mine, so I went and hung out at their place and trained a bit with Chris at UCLA. I'd go in and do a little bit here and there, but I needed to take about 3 weeks off, and then I got back into training, and I was able to find my groove again, and I got remotivated.
Well, to 2003 Worlds, you were definitely a major player, winning, in event finals on the floor exercise. So walk me through, because I guess when you got back into training to becoming a world contender, how did that transition happen?
So I think what I wanted to do was I wanted to improve on the other events and try to become an all-arounder. And so I increased my difficulty on rings. I did a triple back dismount on P-bars. I was doing like Diamidovs and splits to one bar and all this kind of stuff. And on pommels, I was doing lots of travels and some flops. So I was trying to become an all-arounder, but I think
Wait, a triple back on P-bars?
Oh, sorry, on rings. So
Okay.
Yeah. No.
Okay.
Double pike, man. I was safe on that. But I think I came to the realization that floor, vault, and high bar were my 3 events where I was going to make a contribution. And so from 2002 Commonwealth Games, I became very, very hungry. At the 2002 World Championships, I did not have a good meet there. I fell in the semifinals on floor, but you need to do that stuff. Like, that was a wake-up call for me. So that's when I got really hungry. It was like, okay, I don't want to feel that disappointment ever again. And 2003, David, when I look back, that was my favorite year. That was my favorite year of training. It was my favorite year of coming together as a team, trying to qualify as a team to the Olympic Games, and we did. That team meet was so fun. We had so much fun. I was just on fire. I was in the best shape of my life. I had committed fully to eating right, training right, thinking right. Just, I was there. I was fully present as an athlete, and I was in my peak form, and you can feel that. So at those Worlds, it was just everything fell into place, and it was because of the hard work. So yeah, that was my favorite meet by far. And the party after, man, oh, that was the best party. It was so good. Yeah.
Was it too much pressure, do you think, the Olympic year, to make it not as enjoyable as that year?
I actually bruised my talus bone in my ankle in March of 2004 at the World Cups, and I was feeling like in pretty good shape, and I was going to build up to Olympics, but I'd had this bone bruise on vault, and so I couldn't walk for like 2 months almost. Could barely walk downstairs. I was doing tons of therapy, so my focus wasn't really even on competing at the Olympics. I was getting healed, so each day was a small victory. The pressure was big because I was the only Canadian that had a chance to win a medal, I think, in gymnastics at those Olympic Games, and I think coming third place on 2 events at Worlds really set me up well. But yeah, heading into Athens, I had a distraction. That was my injury, and I actually think that was a blessing in disguise, because it kept me humble, and it kept me like appreciating the small daily victories.
Were you tracking your competitors going into the Olympics at that time?
Well, it wasn't as easy to do that, right? If you weren't at the World Cups, there wasn't Facebook, there wasn't YouTube. Like, you couldn't be looking at people's routines, you couldn't be following them on Instagram. So I kind of heard and saw results of what was happening at World Cups, but no, it was more of an internal process. And my coach and I really figured out that to be in our best form at the Olympics, it was going to be about coming up with like what the performance goals were, not the outcome goals. So we actually didn't talk a lot about winning a gold medal. We talked about what the routine was going to look like that was going to get me in that position.
What did you consider kind of your weapon or your strategy on floor to put you in that position?
I think it was about just making everything as clean and as stylish as it possibly could be. I look back at that routine that I did in Athens in that final, and I can relive it as if it was yesterday. It also feels sometimes like it was like a whole lifetime ago, like a different version of myself. But I was in peak form, and we knew that on that day we were going to have to be as mentally strong as we possibly could be. I think in the lead up, there was some frustration. My ankle was still sore. I couldn't stick a double-double in the training camps that we had. We had a training camp in Madrid, and I would go through this perfect routine, and then I couldn't stick the dismount, and I was like, "Argh!" And Kelly kept reminding me, he's like, "Kyle, there's one that you have to stick, and that's the one in the Olympics. So give it exactly that you like Eminem, right? One shot, one opportunity." He said, "This is the one that you have to do." And I remember being in the warm-up, actually, because you get to warm up in the competition venue before, and then they kick you out 30 minutes before, and you go to the warm-up gym. And I was doing my first pass, and like all of the floor guys were like on there, and it's kind of like this, puffing up chest, and it's like a peacock fight. Like, we're all kind of going and trying to be at your best in the warm-up, trying to psych people out, and I couldn't stick my first pass. I was doing whip, 1.5 front full Rudy, and I kept taking a step, taking a hop, and I was like, "Argh!" So frustrated. And Kelly's like, "Kyle, you got this, man. You just have to stick it in the competition. So stop worrying, stop being a freak, and trust yourself that you're going to do it when it matters." And I did. And it's almost like...
How did you flip the mind? Did he slap you? I mean, what got you to that?
It's pretty.
Yeah.
No, he just... Kelly was I was the type of athlete who needed a lot of water rather than fertilizer. Like, I wasn't this person that needed to get in trouble for things. I was the one that needed to be built up because I was giving myself enough trouble. I'm a perfectionist at heart. I needed to be reminded that I needed to aim for excellence and not perfection. And my coach was my coach since I was 6. He knew me. He knew my body language. He knew the right things to say. And it was just reminding me that I can do it when it matters. I have done that before. He just really tried to ground me, and he was like my calm in the face of the storm. And so he was the one that was like smooth sailing, and I was the one that was a bit panicky, but we worked together and we came to like be this great relationship.
Did you know that you could be the best if you won? Did you feel that going?
It's crazy. I always knew it. I always knew as a young kid that I had that potential. I think I stood out as a youngster. I had a great air awareness. I learned like how to tumble and how to twist so quickly and easily. I picked up skills on floor vault, high bar, like so easily. So I always felt that. I have an interview when I was 9 years old. It's on video, and I tell the reporter, I'm going to go to the Olympics and I'm going to win. And I look at it now, and it was a strong firmly rooted in the ground belief that I could do that. And it wasn't me just saying it because the people around me were saying it. I was driving the bus. I knew it. And so I always look at that, and I have parents that come to me often and they say, my kid's going to go to the Olympics and they're going to win. And instantly I'm like, they're not, because you're driving the bus. They're not driving that bus, right? So I think it has to be athlete driven, coach supported, and my coach was always there to do whatever it took. Yeah, so I just always had this internal feeling that I could be great. And even when I had a bad day, this is where I kind of go to it. This is what separates the best athletes from the athletes that were almost the best. When I had a bad day, I would stress about it and I'd obsess about it and I'd figure out a way to make the next day better. It was writing down plans. It was coming up with goals. I was never able to let go of that Olympic dream. It was something that I had to see myself through. I had to see it through. And I had come to the conclusion and determination at the Olympics in Athens that no matter what happened, my family was going to love me. My coach was going to be there to support me. It would be okay. And that gave me the courage and the freedom to really go after it.
Well, it certainly is better when you actually do win. So the next day, did it bother you when you did not medal in the vault final? Did it bug you, or is it you're on such a high that who cares at that point?
Yeah, it bugs me more now. It bugs me more now because of the injustice about it, that there was judges who were penalized, that there was a Canadian judge on that panel, and he should have been the one to say, there's something wrong here. The scores were out of deviation. The fact that Marian Dragulescu scored higher than me on the vault that he fell on, where I landed and took a hop out of bounds on the side. And don't get me wrong, Marian's one of my friends. I really enjoy his company. He's someone that I idolize. I think he's an amazing athlete, and I love what he's doing. But on that day, the reality is that he wasn't better, and he fell, and it shouldn't have happened. I'm not the third best vaulter in the world. I never was. But on that day, I was, and I should have been rewarded for it. So yes, it does upset me now. But in that moment on that day, I didn't want to dwell on that. I knew that I had won a gold medal the day before, which maybe made it a little easier. But I was so satisfied. I had done everything I could to be the best I was capable of becoming. And to be quite honest, I wanted to get super drunk with my family and my friends, and I wanted to celebrate, and I wanted to party. I didn't want to dwell on like this injustice that happened that I had no control over.
That is crazy to think that you win an Olympic gold medal and you can't go get drunk because you have to compete the next day.
I know. It's all I wanted. I was like, I just want to go have some drinks and party with my friends. But I got back to the Olympic Village, and the baseball team for Canada had snuck some beer in. So they were like, hey, do you want a beer? I'm like, yes, I do. So I did have a beer the night after I won.
What did you drink at those Olympics? What was your celebratory? Do you remember? What were you?
I drank everything. I don't remember. I have a picture of me with a jug with 40 straws in it, with all my teammates and all my friends that were there. Chris and Cindy rented out, or like got this like VIP at this bar that was on the beach, and so we just went and we danced our pants off, and we went swimming in the middle of like at midnight, and we were just it was a really, really big fun party. And they made me wear my gold medal the whole night because it got us free drinks. And the next day I woke up and I had like chafing on my neck because it was like heavy and it was like cutting in my neck, but
I feel so bad for you that your Olympic gold medal is so heavy, Kyle. You have a really rough life. There was another judging controversy at those Olympic Games. Who do you consider to be the Olympic all-around champion in your mind?
I think Paul Hom is. To be honest, I feel horrible, but I can't remember the name of the Korean athlete that should have, or that I think Paul on that day, especially after vault where he had that mishap, the next routine.
He did get a generous score for that vault, is the only thing I remember, but he had the moment for the other events.
He did, and he rose to the occasion, and I think he did something that was exciting, and I think he did something that, like sticking his dismount on high bar, that's a moment I'm always going to remember. Like, that was a fighter, that was an Olympic champion attitude. So when you look back on that time, I think it was a really bad time for men's gymnastics. I think Adrian Stoica, like being the president, I think he was super corrupt, and I think there was a lot of problems and issues that stemmed from him.
Interesting. Well, tell me about White Palms and why I do or do not need to see them.
So White Palms, have you seen the movie?
No, and I don't think I've seen it. I don't think I've ever seen White Palms. How was your acting moment? did you speak Hungarian in this? What is going on?
So I need to give you a bit of backstory. So the movie was actually directed by my assistant coach, Uldi. His name's Zoltan Miklos Haidu, and he was my assistant coach. I met him in '96 at my very first international meet as like a youth in Hungary. And so then we met him and we stayed in touch, and then he came to Canada to start coaching in like '98. So he coached in '98, '99. Then he left to go back and do some stuff, and then he came back and coached in 2001, and he went to Cirque. But his brother's a very famous movie director, film director in Hungary. And so they wrote this script and they wanted me to be a part of it. And I couldn't say no. I mean, it wasn't my dream ever to be an actor or to be in movies, but Uldi is Zoltan's sort of nickname, and Uldi came to me and he's like, hey, we're making this movie and we'd love to be you to be a part of it. And it's after I won gold in Athens, and I was like, you know what, absolutely, I'll do it because you've been such a huge supporter of me. He's from Debrecen, so he was at the Worlds in Debrecen. So it is loosely based on real life. Uldi started to train for the World Championships in 2002, and so we started to train together a little bit. But in the movie, I portray this character that's like really hard to handle in the gym, and I don't think I was ever that way, but I think Kelly and I used to have all these fights, and so Uldi would kind of come in and ease things over and take control of my training. So yeah, but it was really fun to be a part of it. We filmed a lot of the scenes here in Calgary at nighttime from 12. Our call time was about 9 p.m. and then we'd start filming. So I was tumbling and doing high bar at like 4 in the morning because it's the only time we could get a gym rental, and so we rented out the Altador Gymnastics Club, and it was fun. It was really, really fun. And then I went to Hungary and filmed for like 16 days. And Marion's in the movie as well. So him and I got to hang out and we got to have some fun together. We went out and did some partying. And yeah, it was a cool experience. And you know what? That movie actually was the nominee for Hungary for the Oscars. It was a very popular movie. I actually came out of an art gallery in Calgary. I was at an event about a year and a half ago. And this lady was like, oh my God, you're from White Palms. And I was like, what? She's like, I'm Hungarian. That's like the most popular movie in Hungary. I was like, whoa, interesting. Okay. Yeah.
How do you rank it with other gymnastics movies? Is it above the movie of Kurt Thomas doing pommel horse? Like in the, in the woods. Yeah. How do you rank it?
Those movies are just so classic and hilarious and cheesy. I love American Anthem. I watch it at least once a year. It's like sort of my summer classic movie. I would say it's a bit more festival-y. It's more dark. It's got some dark scenes to it. It's in English and it's in Hungarian, so it's subtitled. I don't speak Hungarian, but he used to coach me in Hungarian sometimes, so I kind of got the hang of it, gymnastic-wise, but I would speak English and then it's subtitled.
Is it on YouTube? Yeah. How do we watch this? Is it?
To be honest, I don't know if it's on YouTube.
When you're in a movie, you need to know how people can find it. You need to be sending them.
I have a
so
copy
Canadian
here.
Of you.
You know what? To be honest, my partner Kristen, she and I've been together for like 7 years, and she hasn't seen it. And we have a copy of it here, so maybe I'll have a screening for all the gymnastic fans one day.
I think you need to social media this out.
It is a good movie. It is a good movie.
I want to see it. I will not take your word for it, but I will watch it and make my own opinion. Now, in 2011, I knew Nastia Liukin pretty well. I was a pretty opinionated blogger, and I think knowing you're pretty opinionated when Nastia wishes you a happy birthday, you know that something is up. But I knew at the time that she was flirting with the idea of a comeback, and I remember talking to her and her, talking about how the agent was putting one thing or, debating. There was a part of her that felt that she really did have that hunger, and then there's kind of that, can you be as good as you were before? Should you come back? Should you risk it? Did you have that fear in coming back after the Olympics?
I didn't. Okay. I am no way, shape, or form in any of the same positions as Nastia and like Gabby. I mean, the U.S. has a way to build that athlete and to build the brand. And a female gymnast versus a male gymnast, like it's a totally different story. For me, I was hungry. I wanted to continue to help my team. For me, that was my main goal after I was able to achieve my main personal goal. It was like, how great can this team be? I knew we had some youngsters like Adam Wong, Nathan Gafuic, Brandon O'Neill, who were coming up. We had a very strong team, and I wanted to see what we could achieve as a group. I think also, I did sign a couple sponsorship deals, and they were they allowed me to train and to like live and buy a home and to be comfortable enough that I didn't have to get a job outside of gymnastics like a lot of athletes do here in Canada. So I wanted to ride the wave, and I wanted to see how far I could go, and I wanted to see how much more I could learn as an athlete, what more I could add into my routines.
Well, at the Commonwealth Games in 2006, you did win gold with the team. You also won the vault. You're third on floor. Did you feel the pressure that you had to kind of win floor? After you win the Olympics, are you a fraud if you don't win? What is that like when you go into those finals?
Yeah, great question. That was a really big learning opportunity for me, a big growth moment as an athlete, because I did put tons of pressure and expectation. And when I do my motivational talks, I talk a lot about 2006 being a year where I was actually more afraid to make a mistake than I was to embrace what was possible. And I remember being in Athens and being so hungry for success. And then I remember being in 2006 and actually being afraid that I was going to fall on my butt. And I did it at Worlds, I was afraid, and I took a big step back. And at Commonwealth Games, I was afraid on my Arabian double from Pike of I wanted to stick it so bad and I wanted to be so great so badly that I actually held back. And I was struggling with a bit of injury that year. I had an Achilles tendon problem, so every takeoff was just excruciatingly painful. So that was all playing on my mind. But when I landed on my butt on my first pass at Commonwealth Games, I just remember having the conversation. It was so negative inside my head. I was like, you're a loser, blah, blah, just feeling so bad. And actually my agent at the time, I talked to her after, and she was like, Kyle, it happened. And what you need to define yourself on now is how you react in situations where things don't go your way. Because you can be a great athlete, but people aren't going to like you if you aren't a great winner and loser. So you have to figure that out really, really quickly. And that really helped me. And I think, like I said, Simone made those mistakes at the trials. I think it's the wake-up call. It's like, oh my God, I'm human and I can actually make mistakes. And this isn't as easy as I thought it was. So yeah, it was a good wake-up moment for me.
Probably much better for her to go through that than someone like Kim Zamaskal, who makes that in the Olympics or something like that.
And it's replayed over and over and over again, right?
Yeah. I always like the expression people say, fight for the medals. It's like you get into physical shape and then you're in position to fight, much more aggressive term. I remember you blogging a lot in 2007, and you started doing YouTube videos of your floor routines, which you can actually see. So how determined were you to kind of fight for that title again that year, and how much had your mindset changed?
In 2007, I was on a whole new level. I wanted to be world champion.
It was like Kyle 3.0. Yeah, it was.
Boom, right? No.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't want to come 50th at Worlds. I wanted to win floor, and I wanted to set myself up for the Beijing Games to go in as a world champion, an Olympic champion, and a world champion heading into an Olympic Games. That's what I wanted. I had never become a world champion, and I had won bronze medals at Worlds, but that was my goal, and that's what kept me hungry, and that's what kept me in the gym, trying to push myself, trying to perfect those little details, and every day being motivated to be a little bit better. And I think if you don't have that, then you do become very stale. So yeah, in 2007, I was in great shape. Like, if you ask any of my teammates or our national coach, Edward Yarov, in training, I was on fire. I think my first vault so we go in the first day is kind of easy, feel it out. The second day you can do routines if you want to do them, but the third day is when you do routines. On the second day I was doing Yurchenko 2.5 and I was sticking them on my first vault, no warm up, and I was like, yeah, I'm ready. For me, that was a determining factor. I hit every high bar routine. I was on fire. But that third day at Worlds was when things changed a little bit for me in my journey.
Yeah. Obviously, you had that injury. The thing I thought that was interesting is I listened to an interview where you said that you waited 10 days to fly back because you wanted to stay with the team.
Yeah.
With such little time before the Olympics, how are you not freaking out that 10 days is too much time to even lose at that point? I mean, these horrific, experience that you went through.
Yeah. So for me in that moment, I actually had a lot more support in Germany because I had a physiotherapist there, a massage therapist there. I wasn't able to have surgery on my legs until the swelling had gone down. There was the option to have the surgery in Germany, but we elected not to because we sent the images back to my surgeon in Canada. My surgeon. It's the only time I ever had surgery, but he's the team doctor, the team surgeon, Dr. Nick Matati. So we sent him the images, and he's like, there's something in there that I just really want to check out before, so I recommend you don't get it in Germany, so come home and get it done. And and I wanted to be there to support my team. I had a lot of pride in my team. I knew that they were capable of it, and I felt horrible. The second the injury happened, the first thing that went in my mind was, I let down my team. They're not going to be able to qualify for the Olympics. And I felt so guilty about that. And I just wanted to be there and lend them as much emotional support and show them that I was there for them. If I couldn't be there on the competition floor, I was there for them on the sidelines. I was going to cheer. Yeah.
So what did he find something that he was looking for, I guess, the surgeon? Because you don't want to hear those words. I don't like,
Yeah. So the fractures were actually displaced tibial fractures. And I had a bone that had ripped out in the left knee in the side, and there was a ligament that had been damaged. So he wanted to make sure that he wanted to check in on that. And the German doctors had, I'm sure that they had seen it, but they only really had mentioned the two fractures in the knees. So he wanted to just make sure that we did like a good scan of the entire knee to ensure that we were knowing exactly what we were up against. And I'm really glad that we did. I had great support in Germany. I had a wheelchair and people that were carrying me around, and it all worked out well.
I know that you said that you wanted to inspire people with your comeback, but how much doubt did you feel? I remember watching it, and there were months like it didn't seem like it was going to happen, and then it seemed like he's really going to do this. So I guess what kind of emotions did you go through that year?
Yeah. It was a roller coaster of a year. I think initially when an injury happens, you go into athlete mode and you're like, okay, what's the plan? I'm going to get this going. Let's get the plan in place. Let's get regimented. Let's do our daily schedule, right? So I was in that mode. And I think I was there for about 2 months. Like I really came home. I had to move back to my parents' place because I had stairs in my home that I had bought. So, my parents lived in a bungalow, so I could just stay up on the main level and they could push me around in my wheelchair. And my dad built me like a wheelchair ramp and all this stuff. And I needed the support. I couldn't even shower like without my parents' help. I'm like, hi, Mom. Yeah, you haven't seen me naked since I was like 4, but here we go. Right? But it was very humbling. And after about 2 months is when the reality set in that this was going to be hard. I hadn't done gymnastics in almost 2 months. I was walking on crutches. I had lost all my muscle. I had like this big hanging muscle off my leg. I could barely do a handstand. Being upside down, I got dizzy. Like, that's when it kicked in. Like, oh man, I have a lot of work ahead of me. But I think that was kind of like January-ish was my lowest time. As the new year came in, and I was like, I have 8 months left here, and I'm so far ahead, and I could barely jump off the edge of a pool. I was afraid to like land and get any pressure or impact on my legs. But it was just the daily showing up and trying to bring out the best of myself and setting a daily goal and chasing that and celebrating it. And I think when I stopped looking as big picture and I looked on a day-to-day, what's the victory that I can have today, that really allowed me to be able to focus on the positives and to get back. And then, slowly I could run again, and slowly I could do cartwheels and I could do front handsprings. And then once I got back into shape and I started trusting my legs again and I could get full range of motion, then I really started to get everything back quickly. And it was a good mental test too. I had to do lots of visualization. I had to be very strong mentally. I had to live in my head, so I had to be strong. Did
you have any good freakouts in that January to kind of get yourself? Sometimes you hit a low before you hit a high. I mean, did you? Oh yeah. Okay.
I remember the day, and I won't say the words that I said, but there was a lot of expletives. There was a lot of yelling at myself, just like a lot of F-bombs. And I had a relationship at the time. Her name was Melissa, and we had lived together, and we had like this huge blowout because the stress was just so high, and our relationship actually ended up falling apart because of that. And it was one of those things that it was with me every second and every minute of every day. And my pop blew up. My top blew up.
It happens.
It does. Yeah.
How much pain were you in that year when you were actually competing?
I was in a lot of pain. I was on a very good painkiller. I was taking lots of anti-inflammatories. But the insertion where the actual, I had a plate in my left knee. So the right knee I have 1 screw in, but in the left knee I had a plate with 5 screws. And where that plate was actually where my hamstring attached to the bone. So every time I tried to bring my heel up to my butt, I would feel this like burning sensation. So if I would lay on my tummy and I try to bring my heel to my bum, my knee would just it would burn, and I couldn't activate my hamstring. So that was an ongoing problem. Even at the Olympic Games, I had it. But I think the closer you are to the Olympics, the more able you are to just like let the pain get out of your mind. But the day after we competed, we took the day off, and then the next day I went in to do some training because Adam and Nathan were still in the all-around final, so I wanted to go support them and train with them.
You're such a martyr, Kyle. This is so nice of you.
Well, I also was the reserve for vault finals, and so I was like, maybe I should train. Like, I'm ninth, and maybe someone will pull out. But I also got the opportunity to broadcast with Canadian television at that time as well. So I was doing a lot of things, but I went into the gym and I was so sore. Oh my God. It's almost like the adrenaline had like left my body, and I was so sore. I couldn't lift that heel to my butt, and it was just excruciatingly painful. So I actually didn't train after that day, and that was the last day that I went into the gym and really like tried to do gymnastics.
So would you say that the process of getting yourself from 2007 Worlds to 2008 Olympics was better than the actual experience of competing there, going through?
Yep. Yeah, it was. It was. I love the thought that the athlete right before they compete is actually at their best version. It's not that second after it happens. That's when like the crash starts happening, because you're like, oh my God. And I've always been the type of person who's been very, very driven by goals. I need goals and I need plans. I need a reason to do something. Otherwise, I'm like, workout, blah, yeah, right. But if I'm like, I'm going to work out for 30 days straight, then I'm like, okay, here's my plan. Okay, and then I do it, and I'm a committer. Like, but if I don't have a distinct plan and a real reason, if I don't have my why, then I can't motivate myself. And I had a big reason why heading into those Olympic Games. But it was like the second that it was done, I instantly felt like the deflation.
Now, you talk about commentating. Now, you are a talker, but had you imagined yourself commentating? Had you practiced? I mean, it doesn't seem like they probably had to twist your arm too hard. So talk about becoming a commentator on the spot like that.
I was like, no, I don't want to. I was digging my heels in the ground.
Just like that movie, you had to be I guess I'll do it.
Right, yeah. Exactly. Oh man, it's so funny because when I was a kid, I was really, really shy. When I would do interviews and stuff, I'd be like, ugh! Like I'd be so afraid, and I'd get heart palpitations. But as I've grown older, I've become quite an extrovert, and I love to talk. But what I love to do is share my passion and my knowledge of gymnastics. I love this sport, and I want to educate people. So yeah, when the opportunity presented itself, it was something that I had wanted to do since about Barcelona '92, when I saw Tim and Alfie doing NBC. I saw Larissa Loewen did it for Canadian television, for CTV at the time. And yeah, I mean, it's something I always dreamed of. And when I got that opportunity presented to me, I jumped at it. And Laurie Strong-Ballard was actually, her and I worked together along with Brenda Irving in the booth. And Laurie taught me so much about commentating. And she was a great mentor. And yeah, I love the way that Bart Connor and Kathy Johnson commentate. They're two of my favorites. I love the way they tell stories. So I've always watched commentating, and now I even watch it more, thinking of like how I can learn from it.
Well, you earned points by saying you liked Bart and Kathy. I want to know, what is your daily life like now when you're not commentating? You have a gym, so I guess, are you coaching? Are you owning a gym? What is your daily goal schedule now? Yeah.
So my daily schedule is it's pretty awesome, actually. I've got a really amazing team that I work with at my gymnastics center that we opened it in 2013. So October of 2013. After the London Olympics, I sort of took a break when I retired. I was like, I don't want gymnastics as a part of my life on a day-to-day basis. I need some time away. And so I went back to school, and I did broadcasting, some broadcasting in some business school, and I did my yoga teacher training, and I traveled, and I was doing my motivational speaking and doing some mentorship stuff, and all that was really fun. But I decided in 2013 I need gymnastics in my life. Like after the Olympics in 2012, it's my passion place, right? So I needed that. So yeah, I opened this gymnastics center 2013. I have an amazing team. I don't coach on a day-to-day basis. I coach adult gymnastics on Mondays. Okay. It's my favorite thing in the world. I do it with them, and I work out with them, and it's super motivating. But I really see myself as like I don't want to say the figurehead, but I am the director of the gym, the executive director. I oversee everything. Everyone's in touch with me. I try to like create a sense of team, but I'm not coaching on a day-to-day basis. And then right now, as I get ready for the commentating at the Olympics, I'm very, very focused on like building my profiles, building my bios, getting as much information, talking to as many people as I can. And then a big addition to my life, my daughter was born in January, so I made a pact with myself that I was going to take it as easy as I can for the first year of her life. I want to spend as much time with her as I can. I want to see her grow. I want to take her for lots of walks. I want to go and look at things with her and just experience life through the child's eyes. And so that's sort of where my day exists. But I do, each day seems to fill up with things. I do a lot of events. I work with a lot of different charities. I'm always involved and engaged in a lot of things locally in Calgary. And yeah, so that's sort of what my life is. But I don't have a day-to-day. At this time of day, I do this and that. Yeah. Except I do walk my dog. I think you can probably see his feet here.
Yeah.
He's sleeping.
Okay.
His name's Cooper, and we go for 2 walks every day, and that's when I really catch up. Like I listen to Gymnastics podcasts, and I listen to lots of different podcasts, and I do my phone calls, and that's when I mainly do my work, is when I'm walking my dog.
Did you actually ever teach yoga? You have a very zen demeanor and like a very good voice. I could picture you talking about the light, and you're really intense. I feel like you're very into the yoga teacher talk. Like I think that you could really pull the
right.
I want to be a yoga teacher, but I don't think I could pull off talking about the light. Like I'm too intense for that. It would be a little too boot camp. So yeah.
You know, when I coach, when I teach gymnastics, I'm very technical and very boot camp. I'm like, let's do it the right way. But I never did teach yoga like professionally. I taught it in my teacher training, and I do like sometimes, you know, for a group of friends or whatever, I'll take us through a few sun salutations or whatever. But generally, I wanted to take the yoga teacher training to enhance my practice. Yoga is really what saved me when I retired from sport. I got severely depressed, as most athletes do. I had a big cloud over my head, and I had a hard time getting out of bed on a daily basis. And I was drinking a lot, and I was just like in this place where I had no purpose and no belonging, nowhere to be, and no one was phoning me. You know, I didn't have a gym to go to, and I didn't have coaches and teammates to like hold me accountable to exercising. And so anyways, yoga was the thing that gave me purpose, and so I wanted to learn a lot more about it. And it just made me feel so like, it made me feel so refreshed. It made me feel like I really had a place to belong.
I always feel better when I do it every day. And then when I don't, I always think, why did I stop doing that again?
Right?
Like, we have to learn the same stupid lessons over and over again. But your
why
life works better when you do that. Yeah.
Exactly. And you're better to everybody around you, right?
Yeah. Well, wrapping up, I have 2 fun questions for you.
Okay.
It was always world team member before Make It or Break It, where they said world's team. And to me, in skating, it's always world team. You make the national team. So as a commentator, is it world team or world's team?
I would say a world team member.
World team
you're
member.
Part of
the world team.
Yeah.
Because this world's team is new and it upsets me. It bothers me. We were one way for so long. It's like nails on a chalkboard. But the second thing, the second thing is that Canadians do this thing. Americans always say that they are going to the Olympics, but Canadians will say, when I got back from Olympics. Where did the word the go? What is happening with the word the?
I would say that. Personally, I'd say when I got back from the Olympics.
Because many Canadian athletes will say, when I came back from Olympics. If you listen to Stella Ume speak, or Megan Hamlin, Eric Radford, they will say, I came back from Olympics. So I want you to watch this now, and we'll be looking forward to seeing your commentating in Rio this summer. Thank you so much, Kyle.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be on your show. And go Olympics.